The system didn't break me. It made me stronger. I remember the first time I saw Maxwell Granger. He walked into the main office like he'd just been handed the world on a silver platter. Black tailored suit, Rolex gleaming, confidence radiating from every inch of his 6-foot frame, and not a single clue about what we actually did. "Call me Max," he said, flashing a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I like things lean, fast, and efficient. We're going to do great things starting now." There was a beat of silence, followed by the kind of awkward clapping you only hear in corporate town halls or at kindergarten performances. I stayed quiet, arms crossed. I'd been with Nexora Systems for nearly 9 years, outlasting 2 CEOs, 4 restructurings, and a corporate buyout. I knew how to play the game, but Max, he was about to learn some hard lessons. The first week was chaos. Max canceled our regular project review meetings and replaced them with vision strategy syncs. He fired 3 mid-level managers by Thursday, 2 of them via email. Then, without understanding the system architecture, he started making changes to our flagship software product. That product? I built it 6 years ago, after a failed acquisition nearly tanked us. I designed a new back-end infrastructure, streamlined, secure, and scalable, and I didn't just design it, I patented the system under my name. It was a protective move encouraged by the previous CEO, who told me, "Emma, if you ever leave, we'll be begging you to come back." That was in my employment contract, a clause that most execs never bothered to read. But Max, he hadn't. Read a thing. By the second week, he started calling me tech lead instead of my actual title, Director of Systems Architecture. Small insult, but telling. He avoided eye contact in meetings, interrupted me mid-sentence, and praised Junior. Staff for ideas I'd already presented. Classic power play. Demean, discredit, dismiss. I kept my cool, as I always do, but I started documenting everything. Then came Friday morning. Max strolled into my office, leaned against the doorframe like he was starring in a bad corporate drama, and said, "Emma, can we talk?" I gestured toward the chair across from me. He didn't sit. "I'm going to be blunt," he said, in that tone men use when they think honesty is a favor. "You've been here a long time, maybe too long. Things are changing, and we need people who move at a different pace." I raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning I'm letting you go, effective immediately. We've decided your position is redundant. You'll get a severance package, of course. HR has the paperwork." It was rehearsed, smug. I almost laughed, but instead, I leaned back in my chair and looked at him. Really looked at him. He had no idea what I owned, no idea what that one line in my contract meant. Without me, without my explicit written consent, the company couldn't legally continue using the system running 82% of its operations. But I didn't say any of that. I just smiled. A calm, polite, deliberate smile. "Understood," I said, standing to shake his hand. He didn't take it, just nodded and turned away like he was already done with me. As he walked out, he threw one last comment over his shoulder. "I'm not about to spend a dime on an incompetent employee who peaked 5 years ago." My smile didn't falter. "Good luck, Max," I said. He paused at the door, probably confused by how calm I was. Then he left. I packed my things slowly, methodically. A few personal items, a plant I'd somehow kept alive for 5 years, a USB stick with nothing on it but photos from the last team off-site. As I walked through the open plan office, a few heads turned. Some people looked away embarrassed. Others gave me small, sympathetic nods. No one said anything. That's how fear spreads in places like this, quietly. By the time I got to my car, my hands were trembling. Not from sadness, but from adrenaline. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was curious. How long until they realized what they'd done? knew the answer. Monday. The weekend passed like a slow brewing storm, quiet, heavy, and laced with static. I didn't tell anyone I'd been fired, not my sister, who always said I worked too hard, not my best friend, who would have shown, up with red wine and a 5-point revenge plan, and definitely not my ex-husband, who once called me too intense and married to my work. I needed silence, space, perspective. Friday night, I went for a long walk around the city, past the quiet cafes and closed bookstores, letting the cold night air numb the sting of betrayal. I wasn't mourning the job. I was mourning the insult, the ignorance. The idea that someone who had never written a line of code could walk in, strip away years of sweat and sacrifice, and call it redundant. By Saturday morning, I was ready to work. I pulled out the contract from my personal files. It was all there, in black and white, the patent listed under my name, the clause reviewed and notarized, a carefully worded section that gave me full rights over the architectural system I had built. Nexora had a licensing agreement for its use, one that required my explicit participation for renewal, updates, or scaling. And that agreement? It was due for renewal Monday. I let out a small laugh, not because it was funny, but because the timing was poetic. By 3 p.m., I'd sent an email to Nexora's legal department, not from my old company account, which had already been deactivated, but from my personal address. The subject line was simple: Notice of Intellectual Property Usage Expiration. Immediate attention required. I kept it factual, calm, no drama. Just a reminder that, per our licensing agreement, the company's right to use the system would expire at midnight Sunday unless renegotiated directly with me, the patent holder. Failure to comply would constitute a breach of IP law. Continued. Use beyond that point would trigger legal consequences. I signed it formally, professionally. Emma Langford, inventor Nexora Backend Architecture Vice 23, patent number US 934790001B1. I CC'd their legal counsel, our old CTO, and yes, Max. Then I closed my laptop and went for a run. 4 miles through foggy side streets, dodging tourists and street vendors, feeling the tension bleed from my body. By Sunday afternoon, my phone had started to light up. 2 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. 1 voicemail from HR. Emma, we're hoping to clarify something regarding your separation agreement. Another from legal. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to discuss terms of your prior agreement with the company. And finally, late that night, an email from Max himself. Subject: Urgent contract misunderstanding. Emma, I believe. There's been a miscommunication. I'd like to speak with you directly to clear the air and resolve this situation before business resumes Monday. Please call me ASAP. There it was. The panic. I didn't respond. Let them stew. Let them come to work Monday morning and realize the entire company's infrastructure, the scheduling system, the CRM, the API integrations, the automated reporting, the client access portals, depended on a license they no longer had. I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect. And if it had to come in the form of panic emails and legal fire drills, so be it. By the time Monday arrived, I had already been up for hours. Coffee brewed, phone fully charged, laptop open. I sat on my couch in leggings and an oversized hoodie, watching the clock tick toward 8 a.m., the official start of Nexora's workday. At 8:07, my inbox exploded. System error, back-end authentication failed. Urgent, clients cannot access dashboard. Emma, please call me now. From Max. Then came a text from Nicole, an old friend in product. Nicole, did you do this? Please tell me you did this. Max is losing it. Whole system's down. Meetings canceled. Clients calling non-stop. The board's been looped in. I smiled, not out of malice, out of clarity. This wasn't sabotage. This was what happened when people in power assumed competence without proof and dismissed value without understanding it. At 8:31, my phone rang. This time, I answered. Emma, Max's voice cracked through the speaker, forced calm layered, over full-blown panic. We need to talk. I had no idea about the patent situation. Let's get you back in the office. I cut him off gently. I'm happy to talk, Max, but not about a job. We're discussing licensing now, as an external partner. Silence. Emma, he said again, voice lower, let's not make this personal. Oh, I replied, it's not personal, it's contractual. Then I hung up. Just like that, the real negotiation began. By the time I walked into the Nexora building at 9:12 a.m., it wasn't through the back employee entrance, but through the front lobby. My heels echoed across the marble floor, crisp and deliberate. The receptionist blinked when she saw me. Miss Langford? She said. I smiled. I have a meeting with legal. She nodded quickly, clearly unsure of what was happening, and picked up the phone. Her hand trembled slightly as she dialed. I could feel the energy in the room shift, the way people paused mid-conversation, the glances from employees pretending not to look. Take the elevator to the 7th floor, she said. They're waiting. As I stepped in, and the doors closed, I caught my reflection in the mirrored panel, confident, unshaken. But beneath the surface, my heart was thumping, not with fear, with focus. I'd spent the weekend preparing for this moment, not just to defend my work, but to define my value. When I entered the legal conference room, the tone was cautious. The company's general counsel stood to greet me, followed by 2 members of the internal legal team and a senior advisor I recognized from an old merger. Max wasn't there. I took a seat at the far end of the table, let them come to me. Emma, the general counsel began, his voice smooth but clipped. We appreciate you coming in. We want to get ahead of this and resolve things amicably. Of course, I replied. I'm all for clean resolutions. I assume you've reviewed the licensing agreement? He nodded. We have. Your claims are valid. The system patent is registered under your name, and per the agreement, continued use without your consent constitutes a violation. The renewal date expired at midnight, as stated. There was a pause. Then he leaned forward. We'd like to propose a retroactive licensing extension. 1 year, same terms, full operational access. I smiled. That won't work for me. A murmur passed around the room. The advisor scribbled something in a notebook. I wasn't bluffing. I was prepared. I want $2 million for the next 12 months, non-exclusive, renewable quarterly. Full system support through me directly or a consulting team I approve. And a public acknowledgement of the patent in company documentation. It wasn't a bluff. It was a market-aligned figure based on the system's reach and impact. The eye-to-eye silence in the room told me they hadn't expected me to walk in prepared, not like this. One of the legal associates cleared her throat. That's a significant increase. It's reflective of value, I corrected. The general counsel leaned back in his chair. We'll need to take this to the board. I smiled. I'll wait. I wasn't playing a game anymore. By noon, I had what I came for, a clear path forward for the company, an agreement to safeguard the system, and for me a chance to help build a leadership model that values collaboration over control. Max, on the other hand, was no longer part of the equation. The board had finally realized that when you don't respect the people who hold the systems together, you risk losing everything.